Hi, my name's Saimoto. I'd like to invite you to celebrate BC's Heritage Week from February 20th to 26th with coming to our webinar that will kick off an oral history video project of our Japanese Canadian seniors. It's called Okaeri, Return from Exile, All Paths Lead Home. Yeah, so we interviewed 21 of our elders, Japanese Canadian elders. They're all second generation Japanese Canadians, and they were either born during the war or like just before the war. So they experienced the internment as a second generation Canadian.
For me, being associated with the Nikkei National Museum, it's very important to catch our generation, which is the Nisei. Without recordings, we won't be able to pass whatever we had experienced through our lives to our children. So I'm actually quite passionate about recording the histories.
All of the seniors that we interviewed are ranged in age from about early 80s to our eldest senior was 95. And it was very important to capture their stories of their lives. First of all, because they're getting up there, and the second is because it was time that they were able to openly share themselves, and that took a lot of courage for them. Often that generation, the second generation, was not open to sharing because their families did not share openly.
Earlier in the 1980s, we talked about recording our first generation, which is called the Issei, and we just basically did voice recordings. We didn't have any movie cameras in those days that we can afford. So from that, we've ended up putting all of the recordings in that into our archives at the Nikkei National Museum.
And so we did these interviews to really dig into how war and internment affected their cultural identity, like their feelings towards Japanese culture and Western culture and language. And so these are what the oral histories are about. There are basically two groups that we interviewed. One is the Nisei. The Nisei group are second generation Japanese Canadians who experienced the internment as children. And the second group, which is much less well known, is the kika-nisei, who were also usually born in Canada, but they were exiled twice. So they were exiled first during the internment, and they were forced to leave their homes and go to internment camps. And then in 1946, when the government wanted the Japanese Canadians to not return to BC, they went back to Japan. So it was a forced deportation back to Japan. And so the kika-nisei story is about their being exiled actually twice. First from their own home on the coast to the interior, and then secondly to Japan. And so these stories are about how they experienced basically exile. So we're hoping that with these interviews, like the videos, their families and their friends will share and watch them and understand their experience through their eyes. They're all very diverse stories, and to also really inspire other families in the community and in other cultural communities to really share and learn the wisdom of their elders, and to have these stories recorded because often we don't take the time to do that.
My message for other cultures as well, I've talked to the indigenous community as well. We used to do some work up north, and I tried to get them to record their history.
We encourage you to watch the various stories and to really understand how a very traumatic experience, and that was very unspoken, can be shared in families and the community to help the healing process. BC Heritage Week this year we're celebrating it in the last week of February, from February 20th to 26th. And it's really celebrating all of our heritage of BC. And we invite you to attend our webinar on the Okaeri Oral History Project, which is going to kick off all of the launch of the videos on the Nikkei Museum's YouTube channel. So this will take place on Saturday, February 25th from 11 to 12, and we'll have several seniors there just highlighting their stories. And then you'll be able to watch the stories of the 21 elders on the museum's YouTube channel. So just punch in Nikkei Museum and look for the Okaeri project.